But as soon as you understand that there's more to the story, there's more to that response and that reaction from your kid than what they're showing or what they're saying at the time. And so gaining the skills that I have, being able to identify that one and then dive into it and go, all right, I hear what you're saying, but let me get curious about this. Like, what does this look like for you? And trying to spin what their reaction was, what they're saying, in a way that allows them the opportunity to go, oh, light bulb. Like, there is something else there.
What is up, my friends? Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 10 to 17, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 20th year of marriage. So yep, I'm in the thick of it, and I'm working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend, Jon Brown, and we have an incredible conversation talking about discovering a father's heart, being in tune and intentional with loving as a father. We talk about the difference between presence and connection and the desire and fulfillment that comes from being connected to your children. Enjoy meeting my friend, Jon. Jon, what is up? Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. It's good to meet you.
It's good to be here, Ned. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, anytime to pause and talk fatherhood, the thing that's core to our soul is so critical. I mean, it's probably the greatest thing that you and I will get to do on this planet is be fathers, right? Like raise up that next generation.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. There is, you step into a relationship with a wife and you're like, man, I'm a pretty selfish guy. And then you have a kid and you're like, oh my, I am selfish with my time. I'm selfish with my thoughts. Like it's me. And now it's all about them. And it's a game changer to be a father.
Yeah, I feel like embracing marriage, embracing fatherhood, family, it's like the thing that if you truly want to become the best version of yourself, or whatever term you want to do, like if any dudes listening to this, they're in the process of learning, growing, becoming. I feel like entering into your marriage and entering into fatherhood is the thing that will require you to learn what love is, right? And I've been reading 1 Corinthians most mornings lately because, we say we love things, but love is patient, love is kind. You can only learn these things in the friction of family. And so having that reminder has been critical for me. But let's jump into this. I got some questions for you. How old do you find yourself today?
Oh man, physically, so I'm 36 years old, but man, I've got that childlike mindset still. But a body that has been beaten through years of football, years of sports throughout high school, college, and I did some bullfighting back in the day.
Oh, really?
For the rodeo team at Montana State University as well.
Oh my gosh,
that's so sick. Took some hits there. But yeah, I wanted to be a young father. And my oldest is 10 now, and I feel it.
26 when you had your first kid.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. The bullfighter. So you already answered it. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about you. So you're 36. How many kiddos do you have?
So we've got 4 kids right now and 1 on the way. Actually, she had an appointment this morning, and it could be any day right now.
Oh my gosh, bro. That's incredible. How fun. How exciting. And your oldest is 10. Bro, you guys are serious about this. Yeah. Okay. So, then are you going to be done after number 5?
This is it. As far as biological kids, Mama feels that this one is the last one for sure. So those pregnancies have.
Yeah. So when you say biological kids, is it not off the table that you would adopt down the road?
Not off the table, no. So we've done foster care.
Okay.
And we had a little girl a few years back for 18 months, got her when she was 6 weeks old. And that changed my life.
Wow.
We had got her the first trimester that my wife was pregnant with our youngest, who is our only daughter right now.
Okay.
And so I've got 3 boys, Elijah, Isaiah, Noah, and then Ezreela. We finally had a little girl, and then we're pregnant with a baby that we are not finding out when we're.
So fun.
And so, yeah, so we had foster care. We actually, the one thing that my wife and I hit on in some of the very first conversations that we ever had was kids. We both, my parents did foster care. My youngest brother is 26 now, or 24 now. And we got him through foster care and have had him ever since. So he's another brother. I got 3 brothers.
Man, that's incredible. So it's like almost a culture. I think I've heard this a couple times that if you grew up in a home that did foster care intentionally, that then I see the parents, like, or like when you grow up, you're wanting to do that. Are any of your other brothers doing that as well?
No, actually, I've got one. One brother has three kids, and then the other one, they've got 2 dogs, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna be set on the dogs.
Yeah.
It's
So the foster care, I want to dig into this for a second because I know you made comment of it. But you were pregnant. Your wife was pregnant with your first daughter, only daughter, and then you bring only daughter, yes, and you bring this girl into your home for the foster care system, and I know that had some pretty big impact. So I know we're kind of jumping straight into the thick of it right now, but share with me why that had such a big impact on you, having this little girl stay with you for some time.
Yeah, I always wanted a daughter. I was convinced that my oldest was going to be a girl. And the moment we found out, I had that slight moment of, but then I'm having a boy. It's going to be great. And so I always wanted a daughter, and we got this opportunity, got the call, and my wife was heavy into that first trimester. And she's like, if we do this, you're taking it all. You're going to be up feeding. You're going to do it all. And I was in. I wanted that little girl. And Ned, that changed. That little girl broke down so many walls. I was a pretty emotional wreck up until that point. So
you were emotional wreck before she shows up?
Yeah. And what I would say, I was emotionally challenged in that I could not identify what my emotions were.
Huh.
And so in that, my wife would ask me, and this was years of our marriage, my wife would ask me, what are you thinking? How are you feeling? And I could not give her a straight answer on where I was at and what I was feeling. I didn't have, I just didn't have the knowledge that I have now on how to get to those feelings. And that's through a couple different things that I've done.
Yeah. So I know you've done some leadership development stuff, but it sounds like it's not just learning a process, right? It was some specific moments of, I don't know what that is, brokenness, connection.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was, that feeding this little girl in the middle of the night and connecting with her and her not being your own, but her being there for a season. Can you put your finger on what it was that broke through the barrier for you? Because you already had a couple of kids, right? You had your sons.
Yep.
So what was it about this time of your life and connecting with this girl that brought you through to more emotional intelligence or awareness?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I got the opportunity to do every night feeding, every diaper change through that whole, honestly, first 6 months that we had her. And those times are and I guess I didn't understand, because my wife's a phenomenal mom and breastfeeds like a mofo. And so I had very little to do with my boys because she did it all. But with this little
Gotcha.
girl, and getting that intimacy of, holding her close, feeding her, meeting those needs that she's not even aware of, she just knows, and being able to meet her where she's at, and the connection point there broke down so many barriers of this manliness that was, I don't show emotion, I don't cry, I trudge through everything that comes my way. I put my head down and work through it. And she just stripped that away. It was, honestly, it was God working through her in those moments. But getting to look down at her and meet the need that she was at right there in those moments was something I never got that opportunity with my boys. And so
would you suggest, if somebody's listening to this now and say they're soon to be a dad, and maybe it's not, maybe it's their kid, right? They're about to have their kid. Would you suggest that not just passing on the feedings and the diaper change and stuff like that to mom would be a really important part of their becoming a father?
Oh gosh, yeah. Take
Like
every
stepping into that.
opportunity. Yes, absolutely. Take every opportunity. If your wife's tired, jump in.
Yeah.
Dive all in, and you don't get that chance again. And you may get something similar, but that moment there where you're getting asked to step in is so big, and you don't get it back. You get the memory of it, but you don't get it back.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful, man. Maybe we'll come back to that, but I'm going to jump back to kind of the beginning here. So, John's 36, live in Montana, 4 kids, one on the way. How many years you been married now? About
So we're 12 years.
12 years married. Okay, awesome. And then what is it that you do for a living to provide for the family?
So I am a project manager for a development. We're a developer builder. And so we build multifamily. I run the commercial and multifamily of that. We are in the process right now. By the end of the year, we will have finished 10 36 plexes across 2 different projects. That are right across the street from each other.
Got it. Okay, cool. When did you first embrace fatherhood? So would you lean into it's the moment you had with this foster girl, or would you say that it was before that you're like, because you did mention that you and your wife talked about kids before you even got married, but at what point were you like, oh my goodness, this matters so much, I'm going all in on this?
Honestly, Ned, it's been in the last 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I missed, and part of that disconnect that I had early on was my emotional state and the lack of connectedness with my kids. I have always been a present father, and around, but the connecting and being able to meet them where they're at, I did not and could not do that very well until the last couple of years.
What caused that? Is this going back to the original story, or is there something else?
This is amongst that. So with our teal, our foster daughter, I got an opportunity to jump into TLP shortly after that. And when she got reunited with dad, and that story is beautiful in and amongst itself, but she got reunited. That was really hard on us, hard on our kids. But we have a relationship with them now. It's great. And so with that, I had a buddy reach out to me that had been doing TLP, which is Townsend Leadership Program, for a couple years. And he asked me to join this next year. He said, if you do it, I'll do it. Let's go jump in. And so Townsend Leadership Program, like I told you, is an intense year-long process. You go 1 day a month, 8 to 5, and you process out the hard stuff of life.
Yeah.
And that has changed the way that I connect with my kids, the way that I communicate with my wife. the way that I process through the good and the bad. Yeah, it's been huge.
So talk to me, because I want to bring something up that I think a lot of men struggle with. So it's one thing to learn systems and processes, right? So you're going through a year program, we're going to leadership training, we're reading leadership books, we're doing this stuff, right? So it's one thing to have processes and systems of, okay, I'm self-talking myself through this argument with my wife, or okay, I'm coming home, I had a busy week, day at work, so that I want to connect with my kids. So it's one thing to have a ritual, it's another thing to experience transformation, right? And I think transformation comes from discipline, systems, processes over time, if you're doing it with intention. But to what level do you feel like your heart has been transformed to where you're experiencing emotion in a different way, not just mentally going through a checklist or process? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think for me, there was a lot of things, Ned, that I used to do that I thought were connecting.
Mm-hmm.
Just asking questions and trying to communicate with my kids on kind of that surfacey level.
Okay.
But as soon as you understand that there's more to the story, there's more to that response and that reaction from your kid
Mm-hmm.
than what they're showing or what they're saying at the time.
Yeah.
And so gaining the skills that I have, being able to identify that one and then dive into it and go, all right, I hear what you're saying, but let me get curious about this. Like, what does this look like for you? And trying
Yeah.
to spin what their reaction was, what they're saying, in a way that allows them the opportunity to go, oh, light bulb. Like, there is something else there.
Yeah. So I love the idea of connected versus presence. So being present, so it's like, yeah, man, I'm present, I'm present, I'm present. Being connected is different, right? Do you feel connected to your daughter? Do you feel connected to your
Mm.
son? Do you feel connected to your spouse? Do you think that to be able to say yes to those things, that first you have to be connected to yourself? And if so, what does that mean?
Oh man, if dad's not healthy, no, nobody wins.
So what does it mean for
And,
dad to be healthy? What does that look like?
and so that's doing the things. James 1:22 says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says."
Yeah.
And put action and put those processes together so that, when I go home, it's the little things in prepping to go home. If
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
drive straight home and I'm on the phone the entire time, I get home and I'm still at work. And so I'm
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
present, but I am not connected whatsoever. And so I think it's doing those little things.
Man, am I connected? I think that's the question. Am I connected? Because I think you're right. I mean, a lot of times I'm still connected to work. I'm still connected to my hobby. I'm still connected to, like, what are you thinking about right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're at home checking at the dinner table, what are you thinking about? When you're at your kid's baseball game, what are you thinking about? When you're on that date with your wife, what are you thinking about? Like we get to choose what we think about, but I think because typically we're working from 8 to 5, we've created a habit of thinking about work, so we just let that take all the time on the ends of it as well.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So, like you said, don't be on the phone on my way home. So you're doing something else on the way home. What
Yep.
is it that you're doing?
Dude, it's quiet for me.
Okay,
It's
quietness.
yeah,
Quiet.
it's radio off. There's the back and forth communication with me and God going like, this was the day. Let it rest.
Yes.
Let it be. My
Yes.
wife reminds me often that I'm only one person and there's only 24 hours in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I have to pause really quickly. So I'm going to hit
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah.
I have to be back in one. So, John, I think as men are listening to this, to create awareness, right? Like, are you connected? And then you said another word, get curious. And I think, yeah, I'll be curious about what my kid's into, what my spouse is into, but still sometimes it could be like a checklist thing. Like, am I doing the right thing as a dad? Um, and I want us to move away from the shoulds. Like, am I doing the right thing, to just being connected and being there? Right. Because I think then
Hmm.
we're just comparing ourselves to others or comparing ourselves to yesterday or tomorrow. But to truly be connected, I think is what we desire as human beings, to belong, to be connected. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. We are designed to be connected. And I think that's, we talked a little bit about that man island and guys that don't have any outside resources to be
Yeah.
able to ping things off of when, your kid comes to you with something, you're like, I got nothing. I
Yeah.
could Google it. That gets me nowhere, you
Yeah.
know, just a layer and so many different things. But if you have some solid guys that you could connect with and that know who you are, and there's no masks, you're not hiding anything, but being able to do that, ping off of those guys, and then come back to your kid and give them an answer, even if it's after the moment has passed, and come back and say, hey, I heard you with this question and I didn't have an answer for you, but I'm here now. This is what I've got. This is what I found out. This is what I researched. I think that creates an opportunity for connection that takes it into the next and kind of gives you a leg to stand on with your kid
Yeah.
into that next conversation that goes, hey, dad's listening. Like, he didn't just blow that off. He
Yeah.
came back and gave me an answer.
Yeah. Something you said that was really important there is you said, do you have other guys to connect with? And then you kept going, but you used the word connect again. And I think, sometimes we're going to the sports games with our kids. We're going to our kids' friends' birthday parties. We might be going to church. We might be going these places where we are doing like very surface level stuff. And I do hear guys kick back on like, well, why should I pay to be a part of a group? Whether it's,
Hmm.
TLP or Rise of Kings or Front Row Dads or Order of Man or Art of Manliness or a Superhuman Fathers. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. But let's just pick on TLP for a second. If you are going to pay some dollar amount to go, and then you're in a room with however many men there are from 8 in the morning until 5, you better believe that all those men who are showing up in those rooms are showing up, right? Not to say like going to your men's, breakfast, once a week
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to be the same, but sometimes that can just be a checklist. And then also you might not open up to the same level. I mean, hopefully you've created some men's groups where you can be vulnerable and open and honest. But if not, dude, find a group to go join. And it's not for the rest of your life. It is a part of your journey. But go get connected with other men on the same journey. We got to think like we were designed for many years. We lived in a village. We had other men that we could very clearly see how we're living and operating and being taught by those above us. But many of us, we don't have those sages that we're looking to. We're just totally figuring out on our own. And that's not how life is supposed to be lived.
Not at all. And I feel like that was the first, I had a couple hit and miss men's groups that would peter off
Yeah.
for the first 8 years of marriage, 9 years of marriage. And that's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to be in a relationship with somebody and do it well, and then add kids to the mix and do parenting well without having anybody pouring into you, giving you some attaboys or anything like that. I would say it's detrimental
Yeah.
to a man to not have that.
Yeah. If you were to say, and then we can move on, if you were to say 2, 3 things as far as like, this is why you as a man should go join, learn, grow in some sort of community, what would be those things? And I'll give you mine and then you could think.
Yeah.
And I would say accountability. Most men don't have accountability. Mentorship, right? So if I see a dude who's has a really successful business or has been married 30 years, right? So mentorship. And then I think one of the biggest things for me, maybe tell me if you resonate, is when you show up and you realize, oh, nobody has this whole thing figured out. You're okay. You're okay. I think that's such a huge aspect, because so much of the time we're looking at the neighbor with the business and the wife and the this and that. We're like, dude, that guy's got it all figured out. And in reality, he does not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that, that's identification. Like if you have identification with a group of guys that understands and has been there, that you're all on the same page, just at maybe different levels of that.
Yeah.
That accountability is number one for me too. That is so essential to be able to move with integrity through your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids and business, and even with friendships. Friendships are hard too. Dynamics are hard.
Yeah, friendships are hard.
And then that third one would be just attunement is what I would say. Guys that are getting into the well with you when shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're going like, we're not going anywhere. Like, we're here with you. I think that is huge to know that you have guys on your six watching.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's like when you get that text when you wake up, or that connection from a dude, is just so critical. You realize you're not alone, and that there's
Absolutely.
other dudes waking up to fight and serve their families as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because it can be lonely, right? That warrior dad, it can be lonely. Thinking about the role of the father in a couple sentences, what would you say the role of the father is?
Oh man. The role of the father is and I wrote this down because I had to, is to be able to create the space for your kids to be who they are. Sometimes we grow up in households where our voices aren't heard, or they're not welcomed. And being able to create that atmosphere that you have a voice, you know who you are.
Yes.
God knows you by name, and you are welcome here, I think is huge.
Interesting. So I literally just had a little bit of a battle with my son, right? So I have one son and 4 daughters. And I posed the question incorrectly about some tracking I want him to do for school. So he's homeschool. I have a dashboard for him. I gave him a simple way to do it, and there wasn't too much execution on it. And so now it's like, okay, well, now I'm coming in with, you can't leave the house until you text me if this has been done or not. And he's 14. He doesn't get it. Right. He doesn't get it. And so I asked him the question, but I posed it in the wrong way. I posed it, what do you not want to do about this, or something, where it was like I was giving him the option, and I wasn't giving him the option. Right. I wanted to have a conversation around it and let him feel how he felt. But I think some of the times we can just shut it down and say, well, it's this way. Don't ask. Right. Yeah. And some instances, like maybe your kid's complaining and it's like, you're 14, get over it. But then to be able to have them learn to express their feelings, even if they're, I don't want to say right, because it's not about right, if it's aligned with the task at hand. But if too much of the time we're not giving them the opportunity to do that, then they might find themselves as 34-year-old men not able to express their feelings, right? Which is like kind of the roadblock we talked about. So I think that when I ask, what's the role, your voice is heard in this house, I think, wow, like if I could say, yeah, my parents, they might not have done everything I asked, right? Because I'm asking from an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old perspective, but they heard me. So let me ask this, because I want to be careful here. I don't want us to coddle our kids, which isn't what you're saying, but I think it can sometimes come across as like, oh, Timmy, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Which is not what you're saying. So maybe kind of open up or expand a little bit on what does it mean for your kid to have a voice in the home, while you also are not a passive dad, not a tyrant dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. And so I think as I'm just thinking of instances with my boys. I've got that 10-year-old is a perfect mix of my wife and him. And so there's a very emotional side to him,
Uh-huh.
but he's a type A. He's ready to go, and he is always looking for something. And so giving him opportunities to step into some sort of task, and then again going back to that, get curious about it. All right, so you want to go do this. What does that look like to you? How do you create that, and give him opportunities to expand on that, but also set some boundaries around it. And I think that coddling is, if there's no boundaries and that kid's just running the show, that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about being able for them to stand firm on what they believe, but also help guide them. And it might be misdirected, but guide them along that and go, all right, I hear you. I see what you're saying, but how does that align with truth? And it's a perfect mix of truth and grace there. Of you might be floundering in your reaction and their emotions, but being able to set some boundaries around it, limit kind of what they're doing, and give them some guidance on it and sending them on the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of like a perfect example. So one of the things I have my son doing is Apogee Strong has a program, a 12-month program for boys. And so I have my son 2 months into this program, and today he's like, I don't care about this program. I don't want to do it. I don't understand it. Right. And so it's like, okay, I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to help you understand, like, look at our life. Like, the reason we live the way we live is because we do what nobody else wants to do for the most part. And so one of my jobs as your dad is to give you an education, not just send you to your, click a box geography class that you're doing online, but also go, okay, so you got to look, do I trust my dad? So you have to come up with a different, why are you doing this class? Do I trust my dad that he's going to put me in the direction of something that's going to help me? He's still not there yet, right? He's still not there. But I think this is the conversation of like hearing what he has to say. But then as the dad also leaning into like, there was a moment we were sitting at the counter. I want to be like, bro, like I was getting irritated. So it's like, I can't lose my crap because then he's not going to express himself. But I also can't let his expression of himself make me be like, well, I just want my kid to be happy. So like, it's a very fine dance to lean in and guide your kid to the areas that are going to be successful for his life or her life.
Yeah. And you're going to drop that ball more times than you hope to, because it is such a dance.
I think it's good you say that you're going to drop the ball sometimes, because like today is a great moment of somewhat, it wasn't a win in that he came on. Like he's like, Dad, I get it now. I want to do this. That didn't happen. But I didn't also go, you little shit, listen to what I say or whatever. Like, so we are going to drop the ball. And then what do you do when you do drop the ball? What do you do?
Oh man, that is 2.5 years ago. I wouldn't have done anything. But that connecting with your kid is so much. You have to model, and in order for me to model well in failure, I have to get eye to eye with them and go, you know what, Dad dropped the ball there.
Yeah.
I pushed you guys when I knew that you were tired and you had enough, and I pushed you, and we blew up. Everybody blew up. Yep. Nobody wins. And so being able to get down, and I get on my knees with them, and I'm eye to eye, and I'm like, I messed up.
Yep.
I messed up big there. And I want to apologize. I love you. And then I kind of walk through my heart and where I was at. And so my actions were showing one thing, but my heart was here. And I just wanted you to win. I just wanted you to get through this. But my actions were screaming, pushing, kicking. And so.
Yeah. So when you say your heart, you mean your intention, like your intention, your intentions were pure. your actions or emotions led you to respond a certain way. But it's not a justification. Like and that's not what you're saying. And I want to make it clear to
Yeah.
dudes is when you're eye to eye, it's not, hey, I did this because you really pissed me off or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Your mom's being a real whatever. You're not making an excuse. You're helping them see like this is the becoming of the man. The becoming is, my heart and my actions don't always align. That's like what I'm working towards.
Yes.
Right. And it's
Yes.
like, and we get irritated at ourselves. It's like, man, I wanted to show up like this, but I showed up like this. It's like, man, if I could look back and I didn't let that one thing trigger me and I just had a little bit more self-control, but that only comes from practice, which is not like I can practice in front of the mirror. It has to be, I practiced by having kids for 25 years and being married for 50 years. It's like ongoing.
Yeah, it doesn't stop, man. The lessons don't stop. If you're continuing to pursue any sort of change, then you're gonna be failing. You're gonna be learning and failing. You're just hoping that you're failing at a higher level.
Yeah.
And so that you're not making the same mistakes over and over again, that you're some new thing has hit with your kid or with your marriage or with work that challenges you harder. You still might fail, but you get through that and you go to the next one. And that one's a little bit harder. If you're continuing to fail at the same thing over and over again, then you got, that's when the accountability and that iron sharpens iron.
Okay. Yes.
In.
Okay. So 2 tools, guys. 2 tools. If you find yourself continuing to fail at the same thing, number 1 is have an accountability partner, somebody you feel bad about, like, hey, dude, somebody you can call. The other thing that has helped me a lot is journaling either before bed or when I wake up and asking myself, how did I show up yesterday that I didn't want to show up that way? And then I write it down. Okay, what are you going to do next time? And by like thinking through it myself, writing down what I want to do, then I'm slowly creating this conscious awareness that when this trigger happens, this is how you respond. And it could take months for you to do that because you've probably created, years and years of this trigger and I do this, right? You've created a response to it. So you have to find a way to reteach yourself how you respond in those situations. And you're a human, you're a man, you can do that. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, that's so good. I'm just thinking about an instance that we had this last weekend so my 6-year-old was best friends. He loved our little foster daughter. And we have a video of him when we first got her he's 3 years old holding her. And he is scowling at my wife saying, "This is my baby. You don't touch my baby." And so he had an instant bond with her. When she left, it was traumatizing.
Yeah.
And we didn't understand the significance of that until months later when his anger turned into a rage that I very much had to, times I would just have to hold him. And he's throwing fits, screaming, and he can't control it. He doesn't have the cognitive brain development to be able to control that. So it's all reaction for him.
Yeah.
And this last weekend, we had an instance where he's very driven and task oriented. So we're raking leaves and all the other kids are jumping in the pile and he's getting frustrated. And I can see that that's building and building and building for him. And so I got down on my knees with him and I was like, "Hey buddy, listen, I can see it. I can see you're frustrated." And he's like throwing the rake down. And he's like, "Dad, I need them to stop. I need them to stop. I just need to finish this." And I'm like, "I get it, bud, but they're also kids. Like they want to have fun and play. So why don't you just show them how to do a flip?" And so I just switched where his mind was at and gave him something else to focus on. And it completely changed the rest of the afternoon. Like he was in there doing flips into it. And that has been 2.5 years of being able to recognize his triggers and where he was going and connecting, like knowing his connection points. And honestly, it's his love language. of like meet him where he's at, give him the touch that he needs, and he's
Yep.
very much touch oriented, and allow him to kind of refocus on something different.
Dude, powerful, bro. But it's the work that you've done in you that has allowed you to be connected to him, to be able to pause in that moment and not just get pissed off yourself.
Exactly. I would have missed him 10 times over.
Yeah.
If I didn't have any sort of awareness of where I was at. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love too how you understand, what his love language is. One thing we just did as a family is, the love language. Gary Chapman, his website has a assessments. It's no cost. You can go on there. There's one for parents. There's one for kids. And so my wife had made the comment a few months ago. I feel like the kids just don't even know my love language. It wasn't like from a victim stance. It was like they're not understanding the reason why having the dishes in the sink clean is like a value to me as a mom. Like they're not understanding. So we did the assessments, and then he had like $15 you could go through his videos, and it was kind of more around marriage, but it was still gave us conversation, right? But what was cool is we wrote down for everybody, what is your love language, and understanding the love language of everybody in the family. And dude, it's been pretty incredible, because now at our family meetings, we'll ask, hey, how has your love language been met? Or how have you met somebody else's love language in the family? And, as you know, when you got a big crew, it's pretty nice. Like you can have some pretty good conversations when there's several people to be a part of that.
Absolutely. So I get the opportunity right now, and this is something that we started at the beginning of the school year, getting into the school season. So starting at after dinner, I put every single kid to bed.
Oh, nice.
And I get individual time with them and it's always different. But I get to connect with each one at the end of the day, because they desire it. They want that so bad. And I got to have a conversation with Isaiah, my middle son, the other day, who is 8, that it was so fulfilling. And it was 25 minutes of us just back and forth talking about what he wants to be, and then any conversations he's had with God lately.
Now, are you laying in bed with him? Or are you in your?
Yeah.
Okay, you're laying in bed.
Yep. I usually
wind down.
Yep, just wind down and hang time. And the next morning, and I get emotional about it, because he's like, Dad, that's the longest anybody's wanted to talk to me.
Whoa.
And it ran through my head of all the times that I missed my kids when they wanted to connect.
Yeah.
And they wanted that. And for an 8-year-old to have the courage to say that,
yeah,
is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I wrapped him up, and I was like, Bud, I love you. And I appreciate talking with you. I appreciated our conversation, because that is it, man. Mm-hmm. That's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm. What did he say? Go back. What did he say to you? Tell me again.
He said, so the next morning,
yep,
he told me that's the longest anybody's wanted to talk to me.
8 years old.
Yeah. And that kid is all about quality time.
Yeah. So his love language.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want, not everybody can see you. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're probably listening. But Jon's smile, his connectedness just to this story, it deeply fulfilling and meaning to you. Obviously, we can hear it in your voice. And I think about how many of us have this routine of, we ate dinner. It's like, how quickly can I get these kids in bed so I can have time for me? Which is fine. I get it. But what if it was, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 nights a week? It's like, these are the nights that Dad puts me to bed. These are the nights that Dad reads me a story. These are the nights that Dad tells me a story. I love telling my 10-year-old's the only one who wants to hear it now, but I'll lay in her bed and tell her a story before she falls asleep. And if you can get out of your mind, like, how quickly can I get to me time? Because what tends to happen is I rushed through putting these kids in bed and I was kind of a dick. And now it's 8:15 or 8:30. And now I'm sitting in bed and I've started my show and I'm 60 seconds into my show going, what an idiot. I just missed this. And then I'm feeling crappy. And then I can't even enjoy the me time. So what if we were to tell ourselves a different story of the importance of getting these kids in bed, which clearly at this season of life you're able to do or doing? The fulfillment as a dude, like, dude, what do you want more than to be connected with your kid? And the funny thing is as you're telling me the story, and then I'll shut up, is, like kids don't want to go to bed. So if I try to talk to my kid at, 3:00 in the afternoon, they're probably not going to give me the time of day. But if it's, bedtime and they're just trying to keep me in there to stay up and talk, dude, what a great time to have their full attention because they're not distracted by something else they think they can do because they know they can't do anything.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And like I said earlier, we will fail. And it's recognizing that and understanding that, you know what, I've got to do it right. Because they're only going to be 8 for a year.
Well,
and then you're going to have a kid graduating. Like it doesn't last.
Bro, I'm at the point now where I'm trying my hardest to get in bed at 9:30 or 10. My kids are up till 10:30 or 11. And the ship has sailed for me, other than my 10-year-old. So don't miss the opportunity to do that. All right, bro, this podcast is Fatherhood Field Notes. You're doing it, opening up your life, sharing gold nuggets for us to just like vibe with you on. The mantra is rebel and create, this idea of I'm rebelling against something because I'm a warrior as a man, but I don't just tear things down. I build things up. I create. So rebel and create. What's something you're rebelling against? And we hear some things already, but out of the rebellion, what do you hope to create out of that?
I think the biggest thing is, rebelling against that. An emotional man is a weak man.
Yeah.
I think the more you're attuned to yourself and you understand your needs and what you can get from other people and be able to fill your cup so that you can be the best father that you can be every single day, the best husband. You're going to screw up. Things are going to happen. But step into it well and know that it's okay to feel those feelings and feel those emotions.
So let's talk about this for a second, because I agree with you. But then I also know that depending on what we're talking about, I'm not letting my emotions dictate how I show up today, right? Like when the alarm went off at 4:30, it's like, I don't feel like getting up. Or when it's time to go to the gym, I don't really feel like doing this. So what does it mean to be in tune with your emotions? And then maybe give me an example or two of what emotions you're talking about.
I mean, for me, it's that identification, containment, being able to vent, know that I have guys to vent to, that I don't have to go splurge about my day to my wife.
Got it.
Who has no idea, can't relate at all with what I deal with on the day-to-day at a construction site.
Right.
But and so I think it's being able to identify with guys, get that containment, that validation that, you know what, like that was hard. That stuff you're going through sucks. And that's hard. And then that attunement. But, and I completely agree. You can't let that dictate your actions. You've got to be able to set those boundaries and go, all right, this is, these are my needs. This is where I'm at. It's time to take action. And I think that mantra of, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war is so true to that. Be dangerous.
Where's that quote from? Where's that from?
God, that's a great question.
I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
A warrior in a garden
than a gardener in a war. And I think a warrior in that you're disciplined, you're deadly.
Yeah.
But you're also even kill. You're able to hold the good and the bad and still move forward.
Yes, bro. I just spoke at a conference on Friday on marriage, and I had this whole analogy about being the wise gardener for your wife. Like her being this ever expanding beauty if you treat her that way. And you it's like the gardener isn't wise because he went to a conference. The gardener's wise because he spent decades in the garden being curious.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So dig that. Okay. So check this, because as you're talking about this emotional awareness, I think sometimes guys might think we're just saying like, I'm feeling bad today, so I'm going to call in sick. I think, like, here's an example for me. Last night, my wife sighed on the phone, right? She's gone with some of my girls. They're touring colleges. She sighed on the phone. And instead of me being in tune with my emotions and seeing like, oh, a red flag went up and I want to be triggered to be like, well, cross my arms, will like, screw you then, which is kind of how I showed up, versus going, hang on, that's not about me. That's just like, that just happened. Let's not use that as more fuel to make this conversation more lame and awkward. So that would be a moment where I think if I was in tune with my emotions, I wouldn't let them dictate how I show up. And I'd pause and see that come across like my yoga studio in my head or dojo, whatever you want to call it, and decide what I'm going to do with it instead of letting it decide what it's going to do to me.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. This is the way that I look at it is emotional attunement or emotional awareness is your ability to respond to something or react to something.
Yeah.
If you're reacting, that is you catching a ball that's hit at you.
Right.
If you're responding to something, you're on the run for that pop fly and you're going to it. You're going to go get it. And so having the time and the understanding that you have to get somewhere to catch that ball.
Yeah.
And so
that's good. Yeah. And I think that's where we want to be, right? We want to be that steady, sage man, but it doesn't happen by not being connected, right? It doesn't happen by just showing, like, being there every day. You got to do the work, right? And you've mentioned a couple times, 2.5 years ago, I would have responded like this, right? And you look 2.5 years forward, you're on a podcast talking about this stuff with me just randomly. And so many of us want that like 75-day hard, or we want that 2-week, I lost a pound or whatever. It's like, no, 2.5 years ago, I started down this path and it's still like a shit ton of work. And I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's failing at a higher level, man. It's still going to be a show. It's my show now.
Yeah.
And I get to be a part of it and run it.
Dude, I love like your smile at the end of that. It's like, yeah, bro, I'm just going to eat this shit sandwich forever. And I'm going to do it with a smile on my face. Because when I'm 85 years old, I know what is going to be important to me. And so I'm doing the things now.
Yeah.
To be able to look that man in the mirror and be like, bro, you gave it your all. Like, you went all out.
That's it.
That's
what it is, man.
Okay. I want to ask a question because we just have a few minutes left here. We've talked about this to some level. You've talked about creating space, talking about having your kid have a voice, which is great. But another thing you mentioned, which may be in the same vein, is create the space for your child to feel secure, right? And so many of us feel like we're living in this crazy, unstable life. And as a father, you get to create stability in the chaos. So when you talk about your kids feeling secure, what does that look like practically?
That is engaging in every aspect that you can. You mentioned at the beginning there, we kind of met on Instagram. We do a father-son back every year. And we've done this last summer was year 4. Started with my dad, me, and my oldest. And this last year we had 6 dads and 9 boys. And it's an absolute show. But taking every opportunity to reach into their life and know that they are loved, they are welcome, they're heard. And whether it's a basketball team, whether it's a hunting trip, a fishing trip, I think the engagement, and that's the connectedness part for me, is taking them on adventures, getting them out of the day-to-day things, and going and experiencing life.
Yeah. Experiencing life, being connected, engaging, they're heard, they're seen, they're known. And I really want to point this out. Guys, as you're listening, any one of you could figure out a backpacking trip. Just like as an example, I was scrolling through Instagram, I saw John with like a grip of kids and a few dads going on this backpacking. And I'm like, dude, let's talk about fatherhood, because I think sometimes we're drawn towards like the guys who wrote a book or have a program or blah, 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 which we've talked about, and that's cool and important. But also, you can plan a backpacking trip. Also, you could take your kids camping. It doesn't have to go be a part of some big thing or wait for your church to put this on or whatever. You can go do this. And I think it's really important, John said this, is just create the space. It doesn't have to be some perfect plan. No good story comes from a perfect plan. A good story comes from a weekend that was set aside and all our food was stolen by a bear because we didn't know what the hell we're doing or whatever, right? That's the stuff. Any tips for a dad who's listening to going like, I can't do that or I don't know how to start?
Oh man, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Ned.
Yeah.
There are guys that you can engage with any aspect, and that's what I would say is find someone. You could think of one person right now as you're listening to this that goes, that's the guy that he does this.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
And engage, like take action. That's really what it is.
Take action. Yeah, take action and then be okay that it's not going to work out the way that you're thinking.
Oh, it's a show. Ned, that first backpacking trip, every backpacking trip, it's all the emotions. There's crying. It's hilarious. When you step back, it's a show. Yeah. But it is so worth it.
I love that. I love that. Oh, bro, before I ask my final question, is there anything we didn't touch on that you would be like, man, we didn't talk about this story or that I would definitely want to share with dads?
Oh, I think it is those backpacking trips, like that is quintessential. Like go do hard things together with guys that you are accountability guys that have integrity and jump in and do stuff with them and their kids. And you will see in 2 nights, you will see those kids change in the confidence.
Yeah,
it's incredible, man. It is so fun, but it's an absolute show.
Yeah,
like I said, all the emotions, and so disengage from technology and engage in the outdoors. That's what I would say.
That's it. All right. So that's beautiful. And then my final question is beautiful. And I'm going to tuck this new question in the middle and see what happens. Okay. So many of us dads are walking around with a lot of weight on our shoulders, right? It's just a lot, man. So I know that we're not, do not worry kind of thing. But when you're carrying a lot on your shoulders, there's concerns. Let's use concerns. So as a dad, I'm going to replace the word worried with concerned. What's something that you're concerned about as a father right now that you're willing to openly share?
About myself?
And anything as a father. So in the position of father now with 4 kids and 1 on the way and work and bills and marriage and all the stuff. When you pause, what's the thing that's concerning to you? And here's the reason why I asked the questions. Brand new thought to the question is I want dudes to start to be able to say, God, this is what I'm concerned about. Or I want them to hear what you're concerned about and be like, I totally resonate with that. Because a lot of, you say it and then I'll say something to whatever you say.
Yeah, no, I mean, from the moment you asked me to join this podcast, the doubt that I had as a father.
Yep.
Am I adequate? I've seen that. I mean, I've listened to the podcast. Like, you've had some high caliber guys on here. Every one of the guys that's been on here. And I'm like, why me? Am I enough? Am I doing enough? And I think that comes down to if you're connecting with your kids on whatever level that looks like, then you're there.
Yeah.
But that harsh judge has been my concern, and always will be. We're human.
And you say that harsh judge. Who's the harsh judge?
That's that internal
It's
harsh
you.
judge talking
It's
in your
you.
mind, going,
Yeah.
"You're not enough."
Yeah.
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 And dude, that's years of it.
Dude,
We all struggle with
yeah,
it.
I struggle with that too. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
am I really a good dad? Like, there's days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this podcast, I'm sharing all this stuff. Like, who are you to do this? Are you a good dad? And good is relative, right? Like, what does it mean to be good? I think that's probably the wrong gauge. More like you're saying, am I overall connected to my kids, to myself? Am I moving towards excellence, right? Connectedness. And the answer to that is yes. And it's cool that I asked you the question last, because if anybody were hearing this, they're going to be shocked to hear you say that, because they're like, dude, this guy's crushing it as a dad. And it's so funny. I just asked this dude to be on my podcast, and he messaged me back. He's like, it's so funny you'd ask. I feel like a pretty crappy dad right now to my 16-year-old. And it's like, yeah, bro, you got a 16-year-old. Yeah, you're going to feel crappy sometimes. This kid's going to push your buttons. So dude, I love the answer. Thanks for your openness and honesty around that. So my last question is a legacy question. Imagine 30 years from now, your 8-year-old's now 38, right? And to kind of put each of your kids where they are in life. They're similar to where you're at, right? You're 36. When you peer into their homes, what is it that you want to see that will put that same smile on your face we saw a moment ago, and you go, I showed up? What is it you see playing out in their homes?
Man, I see a relationship with them. If I have a relationship with my adult kids,
yes,
that is me doing it right.
Why is that important? I never had someone say that before. Why is that important?
And this is heavy because this is recent. I've had a strained relationship with my parents. And that is, there's a whole lot of dynamics there, but I just went on a hunting trip with my dad because I needed to get things figured out.
Yeah.
And the conversations that we had and the connecting thing that we had was something that I longed for years. And I grew up in, like, my parents weren't divorced or anything like that. I grew up in a home with a loving family, loving parents that sacrificed so much, but the connectedness I did not have. And I longed for it. And I'm 36 years old, and there is hope for some resolve. And so that's what I hope for. And that's what I long for as far as a legacy with my kids.
Jon, I got to say, this is probably the most remarkable answer I've ever gotten, because the reason you said it wasn't because of you. It wasn't like this, my kids are my life and I don't know what I would do without them, which is probably what my answer would be like right now. Like, I'm devastated my daughter's leaving. You have a deep awareness and understanding that no matter how old a kid is, the acceptance and connectedness to their parents matters to their soul. And you understand that your role in your kids' lives is not just till they're 18. It could matter even more at age 36 and 40. Like, I need that stability of my parents in my life. And if we understood that now, the relationships we cultivated with our children for the long term, we probably put some intention around that.
Absolutely.
Brah, I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. I hope that's so good. That's so good. Jon, thank you for the man you are. Thank you for the husband you are, the father you are, the friend you are, the leader, the intentionality, the way that you're showing up, man. Just punch that judge that's inside of you in his face and say, I'm an incredible father, continuing to become the best father I can be. And dude, just keep showing up, keep doing your thing. And thank you for sharing your life with us today.
Thank you, Ned. I appreciate the opportunity, brother.
Love it, dude. All right, bro. Until next time. What an incredible conversation. I so enjoyed connecting with Jon, just such a real, joyful, authentic guy. I love the concept of just take action, get outside with your kids, ditch the phones. You have what it takes as a dad to do that. So plan it, put it on the calendar, hit up some other dads, make it happen. Dads, we must know who we are. The world would look and feel different if men showed up in their identity to love, serve, guide, provide, and protect. And this is why I launched Adventure of Fatherhood. Make sure to check it out, adventureoffatherhood.com. Recently launched 3 online courses, 2 intro courses, one for brand new dads and one for the dad with the 5 to 15-year-old who's just trying to figure it out. And then once you go through one of those, I've got the 18-year roadmap, 90 days, roll with me and about 15 other dudes to dig into creating a plan of how you're going to show up the next 18 years. Powerful, powerful stuff. Go to adventureoffatherhood.com. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That is who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.